Today's scripture reading comes from the Gospel according to Luke. We are in the 19th chapter, and it goes like this. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through the town. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a ruler among tax collectors and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he couldn't because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and he climbed up a sycamore tree so he could see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When Jesus came to that spot, he looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down. I must stay in your home today." So Zacchaeus came down at once and happy to welcome Jesus. Everyone who saw this grumbled, saying, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anyone, I repay them 4 times as much." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this household, because he too is a son of Abraham. The human one has come to seek and save the lost." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So this morning we find ourselves in the third of 3 stories. Remember how much Luke likes 3 stories in a row? Luke's big thing is 3 stories in a row. We are in the third of 3 stories that are all about restoring sight to the blind. Now, the first story in restoring sight to the blind is what we call a passion prediction. So in Luke, throughout his gospel, has Jesus predicting what's going to happen to him. He tells his disciples, look, I'm going to die. This is happening. This is coming. So the disciples shouldn't be surprised, but we have now the third passion prediction. And even though Jesus has said this over and over and over again, the disciples refuse to believe it. They refuse to put it into their head that this is actually what's going to happen. They start yelling at Jesus. "No, Jesus, you don't got to do that. You don't got to go that far." And so they are blind to the truth which Jesus has been telling them. They are blind to the future which is coming. They are willfully choosing to be blind to the truth of what following Jesus as a disciple actually means. In the second story, we have a guy named Bartimaeus. Now, Luke doesn't give us the name Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus comes from Matthew and Mark, who were very particular. They wanted you to know that this was an actual person. They say, "Blind Bartimaeus, you know, the guy who stands in Jericho, the blind one." It's a little funny if you're a grammar nerd, because Mark calls him blind Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus. And if you're a grammar nerd like me, Bartimaeus means son of Timaeus, so he basically calls him, you know, the guy, really the guy who was the son of Timaeus. I find that funny. Okay. But Jesus literally removes the blindness from Bartimaeus. He is no longer blind Bartimaeus at the end of the story. Now he's just Bartimaeus. He can physically see when he was physically blind. So, second time Jesus has restored sight to the blind. In our third story, we have Zacchaeus. Now, it's really tempting to say Zacchaeus is the blind one in this story. Zacchaeus has a job which makes him do icky things. He is the chief tax collector, so he's the guy who tells the tax collectors what to do. He's basically an arm of the Roman government. He's the head guy, so he's gotten really rich because the tax collectors were not totally honest. They would take more taxes than they were supposed to. And they would give some of that to Bartimaeus, or Zacchaeus, because Zacchaeus was the boss, and that's sort of how it works. Zacchaeus had become rich in this nasty job. He's basically an insurance adjuster. And so, the people in Jericho were not big fans of Zacchaeus. And it's tempting to say Zacchaeus was the blind one because of the icky things he had to do for work. But that's not whose sight is restored in this story. Zacchaeus has no problem getting up into a tree to see Jesus. He can see everything. He knows what's going on. Jesus has been traveling to Jerusalem. This is called the final passage. It's the final journey into Jerusalem. He's been doing it. He's got a little bit of a crowd following him now. This is essentially Taylor Swift coming to town. Taylor Swift has come to town, and everybody in town goes, she's here. And they show up at the hotel to see Taylor, and everybody elbows the short guy to the back because he's not quite tall enough to make his way in. And instead of trying to push his way back through, Zacchaeus runs around the corner and climbs up in a tree because he knows that Jesus is coming that way. He basically embarrasses himself in front of everyone so he can see this person who is coming. Jesus and his entourage continue to walk through town, and Jesus, who looks at the crowd, as he did in every passage of story through Jerusalem, finally sees, for whatever reason, looks up and sees Zacchaeus hanging out in a tree. Now, he's not in eyesight. There's no good reason Jesus should notice this guy in a tree, but he does because Jesus notices people. Jesus sees people who are not otherwise seen by the world. The crowd hated him. They had pushed him away, and Zacchaeus found a way to see Jesus anyway. Zacchaeus is just sitting in the tree when Jesus says, hey, I see you. I see you, Zacchaeus, and not only do I see you, but I'm coming to your house. I'm coming to your house. I hope you have some food prepared. I'm staying the night. Now, there is no good reason that Jeremy, what is happening? Jesus needs to get in the tree. There is no reason Jesus needs to stay at Zacchaeus' house tonight. Jericho is within his power, or Jerusalem, just pretend I'm saying the right words. Jerusalem is within his power to get to that day. And so the only reason Jesus needs to stay at Zacchaeus' house is to show the crowd that Zacchaeus is not who they think he is. Jesus sees Zacchaeus in the tree and invites himself to his house to show the crowd that Zacchaeus is not the sinner that they claim him to be. And so they pull Zacchaeus out of the tree, and Zacchaeus climbs down, and now he's standing in the middle of the crowd, and Jesus says, hey, Zacchaeus, tell me a little bit about yourself. And Zacchaeus says, I don't understand. I don't understand why everybody hates me. I don't understand why people label me as a sinner. I don't understand why the crowd can't see me, because I do all of the right things. I'm righteous in the eyes of God. I give money to the poor. And if I've ever defrauded anyone, I give back 4 times as much to them. This is the maximum amount that Torah requires. Leviticus requires you to give, if you've defrauded someone, 4 times what you've defrauded from them, or 20%, whichever is greater. So Zacchaeus is giving the maximum amount that he's required to give in acts of mercy. He's the only one in that crowd who's actually doing the right thing, and yet everybody has labeled him as somebody outside, undeserving of mercy. And so in this act, Jesus has revealed the blindness of the crowd. He has revealed the blindness of the crowd and given Zacchaeus the opportunity to show them who he really is. He restores sight to the blind, the crowd that has labeled him as undeserving of Jesus' attention. Now, we do that all the time. We do that all the time. We have long lists of people who are deserving of God's mercy. We have long lists of people who are deserving of our kindness. We have long lists of people who are deserving of our actually seeing who they are. We put labels on them all the time. That kid's a troublemaker because he can't sit still in class. That person's wearing dirty clothes. They must be lazy. We do this with people in jail too. Oh, they're absolutely just sinful, terrible, awful people, unworthy of any kind of redemption or mercy. When the truth is, but for the grace of God, many of us would be in those situations where we have to make choices. One of Jeremy's favorite musical is Les Mis. And the whole plot of Les Mis is that Jean Valjean is a righteous guy who has to steal a loaf of bread to feed his family. And Javert spends the whole story chasing him, trying to capture him and put him back in jail, because that is the right thing to do. The whole point of the story is that Jean Valjean is not a bad person. He just was in a situation where he had nothing but bad choices to make. We do this all the time. We label people and make them irredeemable. I can't tell you the number of times I have invited people to church and they tell me that they can't come because they don't have the right clothes to wear. And it breaks my heart. Because this is the place you come when you are broken. This is the place you come when you need mercy. This is the place you come when you have two outfits to wear and one of them is maybe a little bit nicer than the other. This should be the place where they find mercy. And for a long time, what people have found here, not maybe here, but in the church, is judgment. And that's our blindness. We're so concerned about being right. We're so concerned about holiness and purity and perfection that we do not see the brokenness in other people as something that we should help them with, not judge them for. Righteousness is important. It is. Being in right relationship with God is important. We shouldn't just leave people in these places of unredeemability. I believe wholeness is possible for all people when they encounter the mercy of God. I believe that with all of my heart. But you cannot help people find God if we are not in relationship with Him. Throwing a Bible at them has never changed anyone's heart. Telling them all the things that they are doing wrong has never brought somebody to the table ready to be in right relationship with God. And so we have a challenge, which is to counter the narrative that the world sees of the church, which is to counter the narrative the world sees of Christians as judgmental and hypocritical. And we could do that. This place, these people, you guys sitting right here, I have seen reach out to people in so many authentic, generous ways. I have seen you welcome people with all of your heart, but we do that here. And we can do it out there too. You can. You have all the ability to do that. You have open and generous hearts. You are loving and kind people. I never worry about somebody coming in and not being welcomed in this space for who they are and where they are. And I would love for us to own that and to go out into the world and show people the possibility of a God who sees them in the tree, who sees more to them than maybe what the world has called them, to see more to them than maybe what they call themselves. I don't know if you've been reading up much on the crisis of depression and anxiety in our young people, but 80% of teenage girls have considered suicide. 80%, which is a terrifying number. And you know the number one reason that they say that that is true? Because nobody sees them. They live a life of performance. They live a life of showing themselves on the phone, and nobody sees the inside of who they really are. They don't know who they really are because the world has told them that they're ugly or not enough, that they don't have enough money, they're not at the right parties. And it's not social media's fault. It's not. It's just more of it than what we grew up with. You went to school on Monday and heard about the party you missed on Friday. These young people see the party happening on live video while they're sitting at home. And all they need is somebody to hold their arms out to them and say, "We love you just as you are. You're more than this. You are enough." And guess what? It's not just young people. 50% of adults have struggled with anxiety or depression. And all they need is somebody to show them that they're worth it, that they're valuable. All they need is somebody to offer them a smile in the grocery checkout line. And all of us can do that. All of us can extend that hand. All of us can be both righteous and merciful, because guess what? People in right relationship with God are merciful and kind. And they see the people in the tree who just need a hug, who just need somebody to eat dinner with them. And so I want you to go out into the world and be the amazing people that you are, to be the kind people that you are, and to take the time to notice what is happening with the person across from you. We can do that, right? Yes, Pastor Liz? Amen.